Three, two, one. Lift off. This is the Colin River Show. We're live for the whole world. Just right behind enemy lines. We always behind the enemy, but two steps ahead of the game. Don't worry. We're gonna catch him. They ain't gonna catch us. And remember, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. And there we have our little friends just coming up. They're looking for somebody. They're looking for Jordan. And we are going to talk about a lot of things. We got Jordan Maxwell on the show as per usual. We just did a show a few days ago with the great Italian Masonic Concomitato of the Roma Pasta Focaccia, Don Leo Zagami. And today we have Jordan Maxwell. We're going to hook up with Jordan. He's back in Arizona in Flagstaff. He's basically freezing to death there, man. He's got like 4 feet of snow. Santa's coming to town. The snowman and everyone there, you know. And we also going to podcast for the Spanish-speaking world, South America, and obviously Spain. And some people that they see us from Portugal, Brazil, and other Spanish-speaking countries. And I will translate as usual. Just give me a week or 2 weeks and we'll translate this video. And you could listen to the video in Español, yeah? And hello, everyone. Hola a todos. We're going to link up with Jordan in a minute. And Jordan, where is Jordan? Jordan is here. He's coming. Jordan is coming to town. Jordan, Merry Christmas,
sir.
man. How you doing?
Well, I think okay, and I'm still here. It's freezing cold and snow everywhere you look. The whole town is covered in snow.
That's beautiful. I like the snow, man. I lived in Sweden. It was great. I really love the snow. I know it's cold, but at least you can see different seasons. Like because in Los Angeles, that you live there, what? How many? 30 years, 30 odd years, 40 years in Los Angeles.
I lived in Los Angeles for almost 60 years.
My God! And Los
Yeah.
Angeles, you can feel the seasons. You know, it's basically sunny and hot. Well, it's very warm winter. You know, and then when you have all these landslides and some rain and stuff, all the celebrity houses, all the stars and famous houses in Malibu, they go down the drain, huh?
Yeah, but where I lived in Los Angeles was out in the valley. So I didn't have any problem with that. I live out in a large area of houses where I don't have any problem with the weather. We're just living a little quiet little home out in the valley, and so I'm not anywhere where it's dangerous. For
Yeah.
earthquakes and the floods and all that. I don't live anywhere near that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
except for Northridge. Remember Northridge in the 90s? You know, I
well,
was
now
living
we're
around the
talking
area.
about earthquakes. That's different. Earthquakes are different. I live right on top of earthquake faults,
Yeah.
but they happily don't happen very often. And when they do, I'm prepared for them, but they don't happen very often. So happily, but sometimes I have been in earthquakes that were really extraordinary stuff. I mean, I've seen with my own eyes what an earthquake can do.
There's actually, Jordan, there's an earthquake coming, you know, and it's very soon. And
Because
this
what?
earthquake is called, there's an earthquake coming.
Yeah.
This is bigger than an earthquake. This is called Uncle Donald, and he's the big earthquake. And he's coming to destroy the Illuminati and the globalists and all the evil people in America. He's a patriot, and he's a great president, and he's our supreme leader, and he's got something to tell you guys. What do you have to say, Uncle Donald?
And yes, together we will make America great again.
I can feel the aftershocks. I can feel the aftershocks, man, going now. From
Yeah.
Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. They're all shit in their pants. Here's Donald coming. Donald is coming, baby, to town. So tell us a little bit about Earthquakes. That's very interesting, actually, topic to start with. Earthquakes, hurricanes, all these kind of natural events. What do you think about this? Because people sometimes they can see lights coming from earthquakes. They see this the eye of the hurricane and strange things happening. What do you think about these strange, rare
Well,
things
we know
happening?
what earthquakes can do. If you look back at what happened to Japan
Yeah.
with the tsunami, was supposedly caused by an earthquake in the ocean.
Hmm.
But, however, if you look back on how major catastrophe that was, well, that shows you what can happen during an earthquake. It really quakes the very earth you live on. And boy, when that happens, you can cause great tidal waves. Mountains can fall down. Valleys can be made. It's a very terrible tragedy when you have a major earthquake right under you. I've seen things with my own eyes during an earthquake that I would not believe. You would not believe if you saw it. But that 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 tragic earthquake in Japan, I
Hmm.
am totally sure was man-made. I think it was man-made, that earthquake in Japan that caused the tsunami.
Wow.
I Because I've heard people who study the earth and the earthquake faults, and they were talking about the fact that there was an earthquake fault off the coast of Japan, and if that thing were to break, it would cause what the tsunami happened.
The
But
Fukushima and stuff.
that earthquake fault did not break. That's not where it
Oh yeah.
broke. There was an earthquake hundreds of miles from there, out in the ocean. There was no fault. There was no earthquake fault where it actually happened. So nobody seems to know what caused that earthquake, that caused that great tsunami, because it wasn't on an earthquake fault. It was hundreds of miles away from the earthquake fault. And so I'm assuming that it must have been man made, because if there was no earthquake fault and they had a great earthquake, something happened out there in the ocean that caused it.
And
And it could very well be a bomb, some kind
like an
of
underground nuclear explosion or something that set it
precisely.
off.
That's right. Something like that could very well cause an earthquake and the tsunami if it was a man-made, and I think it was man-made.
Mhm. And what was that Donald Trump too, or because they usually blame Donald Trump for everything.
No, no, no. I don't think Donald Trump had anything to do with it.
So it was not Steve Bannon or Alex Jones or Donald Trump. So who detonated the bomb then? Who do you think he was?
Well, my first thought was this. My first thought when I heard about the big earthquake and the tsunami in Japan,
Hmm.
my first thought was China.
Wow.
China has always, Henry Kissinger said many, many years ago, Henry Kissinger said, China lives with Japan on the brain. China continually lives uh, uh, jealous of Japan, because Japan is such a small little place, and yet it dominates international construction, international business, while China is so huge and it doesn't dominate nothing. And so China has always hated Japan because of that. Japan does a huge business on the earth, and China doesn't. And China can't, because China is not like Japan. Japan is very ambitious, and they are very smart and intelligent people. And so when I heard that Japan had this earthquake and it wasn't on the earthquake fault, my first thought was this probably has to do with China making a deal with America. It's just my thinking. I have
Hmm.
no proof of this. But this is, you asked me what my thoughts were. Well, my thought was that America is changing its financial plans and business plans for the world, called the New World Order. And so the New World Order that we all hear about is a communist system. It's the New
Hmm.
World Order is world communism. That is the coming New World Order. And so in the Orient by Japan, the biggest communist operation is China.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
so China realizes that they're going to be the new guys on the block in the New World Order. They're going to be the new business center for the World Communist Party.
Mhm.
That's going to be in charge of all the business all over the earth. They need to get rid of Japan. They're tired of trying to catch up to Japan. Why don't you just get rid of it?
Mhm.
Wipe it off the map. And so that was my thought when I saw that Japan had this great earthquake. It wasn't on the earthquake fault, and it did so much damage to the Japanese people. My thought was that America probably made some deals behind our back with the Chinese to let them be the new producers of products around the world.
Exactly.
All of the American and European corporations are moving to China. Why? Because China's got so many people and they can create so many products,
Mhm.
and they're poor. They're so poor. Communism has starved the people of China. They're starving. They don't have a dime. They don't have jobs. They don't have money. They got zero nothing. That's what
Mhm.
you get with communism is
Mhm.
zero nothing. And
and and
so,
that, and that's why we like to emphasize here on a footnote, throw a rope here. When you say America, we put like some brackets here and say the deep state is not the Americans per se. It's not the let's say the American uh, government as the regular see officials you watch on TV. Is basically that deep state behind the Pentagon and all these people that probably they are there behind, super rich, doing
yep.
business, and this is what for example our Uncle Donald wants to do over with, like all these kind of dealings that they're not very healthy for humanity in this case.
Well,
And
that's
China,
what
like
Donald Trump is up against. He's up against a
a big monster.
world, an entire world of communist subversion. That's where we are today. The whole entire globe of the earth is now inundated and sinking into the blackness of death by world communism. And people have been talking about this for years, and they're made fun of. They're seeing communists under the bed. No, it's a real operation called world communism.
Mhm.
And the international banking elite, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the J.P. Morgans, the guys with the big money and controlling the big banks, they want world communism. The most wealthiest people in the world want communism. Why? Very simple. Communism collects labor. Communism collects the people together, supposedly in a union. So that's why big money is always for the union. The Rockefellers loved the idea of unions, the painters union, the plasterers union, the carpenters union, and the Soviet union. So the big money loves the unions. Why? Not because the unions are so strong that they can make more money and force the wealthy people to give them more money. No. The international banking elite, like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and these Kuhn Loeb and all of these international bankers, they love communism. Why? Because it collects up all the poor people, collect them all up into one big union called the Soviet Union. So it collects up all the poor people into one big union, And that's why, and so then the international Illuminati rich can now control labor all over the world. They
Hmm.
can say that there's a $2 limit, and that's all you can make, period. So they get the whole world under their control through world communism to collectively put everybody into a union like the Soviet Union. And so that's why the wealthy love unions because it's communism. It collects people together and puts them all under. It puts them all under a powerful union. The carpenters union, the Soviet union, the painters union, and so that's why in America we didn't have unions. We were supposedly free to do whatever we want to do. We don't have to join a union. You can work without a union.
Hmm.
But that's not what the wealthy people wanted. The big international bankers wanted everybody to be in a union. That way they can control all labor.
Hmm.
And so there's something going on here. And I think that that's what happened to Japan. I think that the international bankers in America who finance the Communist Party and don't think they didn't. The Communist Party back in the 1900s was financed by the Rockefellers, by the Rothschilds, by J.P. Morgan, by Jacob Ship, by all these international bankers in America. They put the bank's money behind Russia, then the Soviet Union.
Hmm. They
And
they
what
call
a
they
lot,
they call it now, Jordan, progressives. Progressives. They changed the name communists or socialists to progressives. So it sounds more trendy and stuff. It sounds like cool, like the new Green Deal or something like that. That
well,
is
of course,
eco-fascist
because
and
they're
whatever.
making progress.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
making progress toward communizing the whole world, collecting up all the poor people all over the earth. And this is why it's so strong, is because the poor people are ignorant. They're ignorant. They've not gone to school. They don't have any formal training and education. They have no idea the world, what's going on. All they know is the wealthy people act like they just love the poor people. They want to help all the poor people get in the union. And then when the poor people join the union, now you're not going to work at all. Or if you do work at all, you're going to be working in a union. And they'll tell you how much you can make. They'll tell you if you can work. And they will be in control of the jobs and the money and everything else. They'll be in control of you. Why? Because they own the union.
Mhm. But Jordan, one very important thing, we were talking here about earthquakes and hurricanes, and there are very important features about these kind of events, right? Do you know why, for example, people see lights during earthquakes and these things that they're called the eye of hurricanes? I mean, can be somehow can they be manufactured, by some kind of high
Yes.
technology, or is like Mother Nature, doing its job, trying to clean the world or something, or what?
Well, where the hurricanes are born in the mid to South Atlantic.
Hmm.
And we now know, I mean, I've been following this story for years. I've known about it for many years ago. And the mid to South Atlantic are under the ocean. There are incredible superstructures under the ocean in the Atlantic Ocean. And in the Bermuda Triangle, which is in the Atlantic Ocean,
Hmm.
there is a pyramid. There is a huge pyramid, the same size as the one in Giza Plateau in Egypt. There's a pyramid sitting on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. Most people are ignorant and have no idea in the world. Nobody's ever told them. But there is an enormous pyramid sitting on the ocean floor off the coast of Florida. And that's where and where the hurricanes begin in the South Atlantic. There are all kinds of underground and under ocean uh, temples and all kinds of high technology. I believe that's not of this world, and it's
Hmm.
under the oceans, and that's why the hurricanes are man-made. I believe the hurricanes are man-made, and I think that there's something going on in the south part of the Atlantic Ocean that's causing these pyramids, these causing these storms. Let me give you an example.
Give us an
In the
example here.
in the Bermuda Triangle, what we call the Bermuda Triangle,
Hmm.
there have been many hundreds of ships and airplanes and many different ships and planes have gone missing. They go out, but they never come back, and nobody ever finds them. Nobody even finds a oil slick or a piece of wood or anything. You don't find nothing in the Bermuda Triangle. If you get lost out there and you go down, you ain't coming back. Nobody's gonna find you. But But in the other side of the Atlantic, on the African side of the Atlantic, off the coast of Africa, there is a set of islands called the Canary Islands. Canary
Right.
Islands are not named because of a bird called canary. No, there's a there's a family of dogs called canine. Canine gives us the word canary.
Hmm.
And the Canary Islands are named Canary Islands because they have a particular kind of dog that live on the islands. They're called the Canary Islands, canary dogs.
Hmm.
But off the coast of Africa is the Canary Islands. Well, off the coast of the Canary Islands, there's the pyramid. There's the pyramid.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
like a composite. Somebody did like a reproduction or something.
yeah. Well, on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast of the Canary Islands, something else happens that's very interesting that most people know nothing about. Because in the Bermuda Triangle, ships and planes go down and are never seen again. But off the coast of Africa, they have another problem, a different kind of problem.
Mm.
Off the coast of Africa, you will find big, enormous ships like the oil tankers and cruise ships and big yachts, big, big ships that are sitting out by the Canary Islands with nobody on them. That's the
Hmm.
strange part. There's no humans on board the ship. The ships are in good shape. They're just sitting out there off the coast of the Canary Islands, but there's nobody on them. There are no humans on board ship.
Wow.
So a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of ships that are being found off the coast of the Canary Islands, off the coast of Africa, where there are big ships. I'm talking about the biggest oil tankers, the biggest freighters.
Hmm.
Big, huge ships are found sitting out there in the water, and they go on board and they find out there's no humans on the ship at all, period. And over and over, they're finding large ships and yachts and private ships and large commercial liners with nobody on them. So on one side, you're just losing ships and boats and planes go down into the sea and never come back. On the other side, you have ships that don't go down. They don't sink. They're sitting out there with nobody on them. And so the governments have wondered, where are the people going when they see these big ships out there in the ocean, and they go on them and they find out there's nothing living on those ships. Everything is all the human life is gone. Somebody is attacking these ships and taking all the life forms off the ships. So where are the people? Where did they go? Where are all these crew members? Where are all the people on board ship? Nobody knows where they are. Nobody has any idea about where they are. All they
Mhm.
know is that big ships out there with no people on them. So I'm just telling you, something is going on in the South Atlantic, and there are pictures taken from the space shuttle on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean in the South Atlantic. Huge pictures are taken by the space shuttle showing that there is a huge, enormous structures under the ocean, on the floor of the ocean, and it looks like it was a whole neighborhood of streets, and it's, you can tell it's all these squares are connected behind the scenes. You can see all these squares under the ocean,
Mhm.
like your blocks on the earth. Then you can see that there's a bunch of squares. It looks like for square miles of nothing but cordoned off areas that you can see under the ground, under the ocean in Atlantic, which implies that there's some kind of an incredible technology and some sort of a presence on this earth that is not human, and they are in the oceans of the Atlantic Ocean, in the South Atlantic Ocean. There's some kind of an extraterrestrial, non human presence out there in the ocean, which in the Bermuda Triangle, you have ships and planes that disappear and never come back. But on the other side of the Atlantic, there are all kinds of huge ships with nobody on them. And when they fly over the South Atlantic in the space shuttle, they have special cameras that can take pictures of the ocean floor for military reasons. And they find that there are whole sections cordoned off on the ocean floor. They're big squares showing like a whole city that's laying there under the ocean. So, what I'm saying is that I am totally convinced that we have right now on the earth an extraterrestrial, non human presence on the earth, and they're living in the oceans, and they're operating in our two biggest oceans. Whoever they are operating in our oceans, and there have been many movies made about that.
Like you have encounters of the third kind, right? And you have
Yeah,
these Potosi and these other ships in the middle of nowhere there in the sand. Huh?
that's right.
More there. They're just like there. And you go like, well, they should have been some kind of sea there or lake. I mean, sometimes there was there a lake or some kind of body of water, but some other times nothing has been there. It's just like the sand and the ships. They just like they've been placed there, like dropping them from somewhere or something. Really huge
Remember,
ships. What do you think this is, Jordan?
remember in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind with
Yeah,
Steven Spielberg? And remember when later on in the movie they went to, I think it was India,
India. Yeah.
and and they go and they're in their jeeps and they're riding over these uh, desert
Hmm.
mounds. And as they come over the desert mound, there's a huge ocean liner ship sitting out there in the desert. That's true. They do find huge ships in the deserts. And
Hmm.
nobody knows how they got out in the desert. They were enormous ships in the ocean, and now there's nobody on the ships. They're not harmed. There's just nobody on the ship, and
Hmm.
the ship is out in the desert, way up in the mountains in the high desert. And so that's what I'm talking about. Something's going on in the Atlantic Ocean that we humans are not aware of. We're not looking, we're not listening, and we don't care to know. But right now, something is causing earthquakes off the coast of Japan. Something is causing planes and boats to go missing in the Bermuda Triangle. And something is causing the great ships of the world, the big oil liner, the big oil tankers, and the big, huge ships to have nobody on them, sitting out in the water off the coast of Africa with nobody on them. And nobody seems to know what's going on. But we can see some incredible pictures on the web
Yeah, yeah.
taken by the space shuttle of the ocean floor.
Well,
I'm of the opinion that governments know. I think the U.S. government knows what's going on. They know
mhm.
there's something going on out there that nobody is supposed to know.
I,
And I
I got this picture here. Excuse me, Jordan. I got this picture here. You probably know about this. In California, you have a place called, I think it's Death Valley,
Death Valley, yep,
and this is also funny here because you got these huge rocks that they can't really be moved, either by man or by snow or by just sliding, because there's no like steep inclination or anything. It's just very flat, and for some magnetic or some magic reason, they move around. What can you tell us about these rocks moving around
yeah.
freely in
They've
California, in
been
Death
doing that
Valley?
for many, many years. I heard about this when I was a teenager. I'm 80 years old now. I've heard about this for many, many years. That
Wow.
out in the desert, or the hottest deserts in North America, is Death Valley in California and Nevada area. It's called Death Valley. It's a terribly hot desert,
Hmm.
very, very dry and very severely hot. But there are big boulders out there, huge, enormous boulders. And those boulders move around at night. You go ahead and you'll see the boulders on the web. You can see how they're dragged through the sand and the desert. I don't know if you've ever tried to drag a huge boulder through the sand, but that's not very easy to do. And yet, on the Death Valley, they see huge boulders moving around on the desert floor all the time. And so nobody seems to know, nobody seems to care, nobody seems to think about it. But that's something that's very interesting. The big boulders that move around on the desert floor, and one of the hottest spots on North America, Death Valley. And nobody seems to know the connection between those big boulders moving around. And I remember many years ago, one of the big networks like ABC, many years ago, I remember that one of the big networks went out there with their cameras and lights, and they were going to go out at night, midnight, and light up the camera and light up the desert floors and watch them move. But they never move. Anytime you go out there and set up your cameras, they won't move at all. Nothing happens. But
So
when
they
they
only move when
left,
you're not there. So when no people are present, the rocks are moving, and they know they're moving because they measure the distances and where the spot was before they move and stuff. But they really don't know why. I mean, what do you think it is? There's like some underground
I
base. There's some spaceships moving it because of some exotic energy or something, technology. What was that?
well, the brilliant scientists that we have given birth to here in America, our brilliant scientists, they say that on the hottest desert in North America, is called Death Valley because nothing grows. Nothing can live out there. So hot. So hot. It's called Death Valley.
Hmm.
Well, our brilliant scientists, with all of their learning, they say that the reason the way that those rocks move is because snow falls out there in the desert at night.
Hmm.
And when the snow falls, it makes a skidding surface on the sand, and then the winds blow, and they blow the rocks, these big boulders. They blow the rocks in the snow that's on the ground, and they can slide across the desert. But that's what our scientists are saying. The reason they say that is because our scientists do not know what causes those big boulders to move. They don't know. And so they come up with some silly ass,
Yeah.
mindless, brainless, silly ass that snows at night on the hottest desert in the world. It snows, and when it
Doesn't make any
snows,
sense.
yeah. And you got to figure, what kind of a scientist would come out and say something stupid like that? It snows on the hottest desert in North America. It's so hot they call it Death Valley. And in Death Valley, it's so hot, but it snows at night. And then the rocks, there's wind. The wind comes up at late at night and blows the rocks on the snow, and they slide around on the desert floor. But the next morning, you don't see any snow that's still there. You don't see any snow. You just see the big, huge boulders that have moved across the desert at night, and there ain't
Exactly.
no snow. There is no snow. There's no snow, and they didn't move, and you can see they moved in the sand. And if you try and just realize what kind of a problem it is to move a large, huge stone in the desert sand. That's not easy to push a huge stone in the desert sand. But a lot of those stones go in a straight line, and then when they stop, they turn and turn to the left and do another straight line. Then they turn around and do a circle, and then they turn around and do a right turn. Well, what kind of a storm would you need? What kind of a wind would blow huge stones on ice, snow, in the hottest desert on the planet? Would blow it northward and then would stop, and then it would blow it westward, and then it would stop, and then it would blow it southward and blow it all over. And you fly over the Death Valley, and you can see how those big, huge boulders are moving all around. They move to the north, they move to the south, and the same ones move in all different directions. And the scientists would have us believe that that was some kind of a boogeyman and some kind of a terrible storm out there at night, and the snow is blowing, and the big boulders are blowing around. It's just ludicrous. I mean, I'm ashamed that there are adults who call themselves scientists who tell me stupidity like that.
I know
And
sometimes they come up with really odd ideas or even strange hypotheses, whatever. Have you heard anyone with some logic or sense or something, somebody talking about these rocks? What hypothesis could you throw on this one? What theory? I mean, aliens, another kind of natural phenomena that we don't know about. What do you think, Jordan?
I am tending towards spirits,
Oh yeah.
extraterrestrial spirits,
Wow.
demons, devils, whatever you want to call them, angels. The Bible and all the ancient holy books of the world, all the ancient holy books of India and the Aztecs, the Mayas, the Incas, the Toltec people, all these ancient texts and all these ancient holy writings all talk about spirit demons and extraterrestrials, angels who have come here from other places in the universe, have come here and they're messing with us, and they are in control of us, and we don't even see them, but they play with us all the time, and they're capturing us and abducting us and all doing all kinds of experiments on us humans. I think that's what's happening. I think that there is a dark and powerful spiritual world that's operating on the bottom of the sea, and the Central and South Atlantic spirits,
Hmm.
I think also in the third one of Star Wars, that the movie Star Wars, the last one, if you remember, there was that strange looking animal with the big ears,
Oh yeah,
and it was
talking like a
leading.
Rasta.
Yeah, and it was leading the the stars of the show were
The rebels, yeah.
following this strange animal, and he came to the water, and he said down
Mhm.
in the water was a big empire that he came from, and they had to go down there. So in the movie, all the people following this animal jumped into the ocean, and they went all the way down. You could see this big bubble with the city under the ocean, and they swam down to it, and then they swam inside the bubble, and then they got up and walked around the city, and there
Mhm.
was a city under the ocean, and this long eared creature was part of the creatures that lived in that under ocean city. I think that's exactly what's happening. We are being told that there is life in the oceans that is not of this world. And there's scriptures in the Bible and the New Testament talking about the extraterrestrial life that lives in the oceans. I come across that scripture many times. I've talked about it in my lectures.
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
said that there are life forms that living in the oceans that are not from this world, and they're living in the oceans. Well, that would explain the hurricanes. Maybe these creatures have technology, and maybe they have set up some kind of a living space in the oceans, and that's why the space shuttle is taking pictures of it, because the military wants to know who is down there and where did they come from, and what's going on, because the U.S. military is concerned about uh, extraterrestrial life forms maybe attacking them.
Mhm.
So
There's a movie called I think it's Abyss, from the
yeah,
'90s
the
with Ed
movie,
Harris. James Cameron, I think, was a director,
yeah,
and talks about something like that. But those aliens or the entities living underwater, they seem quite peaceful. They don't seem quite, but they're strange. They're like flying angels or something
yep,
swimming around. Huh?
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, there was a movie called Abyss, and
Hmm.
the Bible talks about when the devil is cast into the abyss. The
Hmm.
word abyss in the Bible is the ocean. Look it up. If you look up the word abyss in biblical dictionary, it tells you abyss in the Bible means the ocean. And
Hmm.
so then when we read in the book of Revelation how the devil and his angels, his spirit angels, are cast into the abyss, it means the devil and his angels, the demons with him, are thrown into the ocean.
Hmm.
Well, that's what it says in the Old Testament, that the spirits that live in the ocean, God knows about the spirits who live in the ocean.
Yeah, I think Jesus gets the spirits to go into the pigs, and then the pigs, panic and go down the rift. Go down the precipices, whatever you call it, the down the sea or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's it. And that's what I'm saying. I believe that there is extraterrestrial life, meaning not from here,
Hmm.
not human, not kind of life forms we think about, but there is life out there in the oceans that you don't know anything about.
Mhm. I made a video the other day about this very strange creature. I actually concluded it was like a big turtle, like a leatherhead turtle. They're wearing many videos around on YouTube, so I kind of research. I've been researching this for like a few years now, and a shark was actually swallowed by this big creature. First in Australia and then in near the coast of Miami.
Yeah,
Actually, I can tell you. I don't know if you heard about this, but the researchers they were tagging. They were chipping the this great white sharks. Both of them, funnily enough, they were female. The one in Miami got tagged. There were two of them, two females. They actually lower a kind of cage with them in at a kind of like the water
I heard
barrier.
about,
It was
yeah,
not very deep. I don't know if you heard about this. And then the other two sharks they tagged was like out of the coast of Australia. I don't know if it was Canberra or whatever over there in Australia somewhere. And
I remember reading about that. I saw it myself. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And what happened was that the shark, around Christmas Day, on Christmas Day, suddenly, he was roaming around, just in the water barrier, like around 300, 400, 500 feet, just like tops, and then suddenly, he was around. We're talking 35, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, his body temperature, and suddenly drop like 2,000 feet or something. So something grabbed him, or her. It was a female. It was called Alpha something. I don't remember the name now. The video is there by the Smithsonian on YouTube, so you can watch it. It's very interesting. It's around 3 4 minutes, and they do a chasing of the whole tagging and the chip via GPS satellite, and then suddenly drops from 300 400 feet to 2,000 feet, and the temperature changes dramatically from 40 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So the other creature must have been very hot too, hot blooded, because the shark itself, even going down, can change the temperature, and if you go down, the temperature gets colder and colder too,
Yeah.
and so suddenly the chip after 8 days surfaced. Somebody found the chip and whatever, and they did all this program about it. So they said it was a creature, but they don't know what creature it is. I was reading some guy that is like cryptozoologist or something, and some other reports of like this big leather head turtle showing up in Canada and in Finland and in Gibraltar in 1800s too, and it seems like it could be a kind of like big turtle that is like, I don't know, perhaps 40 50 feet long, or big, because you can see on the second video from Miami, the creature that grabs the 10 feet shark actually has a kind of a shell on the back, and it's
Yeah.
rolling around. It's a bit confusing because there's a lot of sand being moved around, so you can't see the whole creature. But imagine how big the creature has to be to swallow a 10 feet shark. It's like 3 4 meter shark.
Yeah.
Is big. It's big, so it has to be big. And I made a video about it. It didn't get a lot of views, but I spent some research behind that. I think in the future, when there are more cases, it will get noticed or something. But I'm also very interested in what you're saying. There must be not only these aliens, or perhaps, I don't know, inhabitants that have been here on Earth maybe before us or something, but also like big creatures. I don't know if these creatures, they belong to these other entities. They're underwater, or like in Star Wars. In Star Wars they have a lot of these creatures, coming from rocks, coming from the sea.
That's right.
You know,
I think that that's all based on facts, and I think our government does not want us to know
mhm,
that there are other world entities,
mhm,
creatures from other worlds who have come here a long time ago and ended up in our oceans,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
because we know we live when we're born. Just before we're born, we're in our mother's water. We're encapsulated in
that's
water.
very interesting. That's funny. Yeah. Go
Yeah, and
on.
so we can breathe in water. And the astronauts, I have heard that astronauts are taught to breathe in water. You can breathe in water and breathe out.
Mhm,
And I've heard that the astronauts are trained to do that, to breathe in water. Well, I know we do it when we're born, before we're born. Incidentally, there's another subject that we need to look at. The
mhm,
U.S. Navy, off the coast of Florida, off the coast of the U.S., was out in the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and it was very foggy. I forget the name of the ship, but it's written down, and there's lectures on it. And the name of this ship, I don't recall the name of the ship, but it was a U.S. naval ship, and they were out there in the ocean, and they were trolling along, and the soldier on that ship who was watching the radar man
Hmm.
told the captain to slow the ship down and don't go any further because it was very, very heavy fog and they didn't know where they were. They were in the Atlantic off somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle
Hmm.
off the coast of Florida. And this naval ship was sailing along, and the radar man told the captain, this is in books, has been talked about in different research books. The radar man told the captain to stop the ship. And why? Because there's an island in front of us and we're going to hit it. And the captain says, we're in the Atlantic Ocean. There is no island here. We're off the coast of
Wow.
Florida. There is no island. And the radar man said, I'm sorry, sir, but there is an island. And I'm telling you, you need to stop. And so the captain checked the radar, and be damned, there was an island sitting right in front of the ship in the fog. And so the captain ordered the ship to blow its horn and tell the people on the island that we were coming in, and to slow the ship down and move in very slow until maybe hopefully the fog would light up and they would be able to see the island. And so they moved through the fog toward the island that is not supposed to be there, but it was there.
Mhm.
And when they came up on it, the book said that the captain, uh, he turned on the big bright lights on the front of the ship to see what this island was, if there really was an island. And it was an island right there in front of the ship in the sea in the Atlantic, in the Bermuda Triangle, an island, but it was not touching the water. It was like 8 to 9 feet above the water.
Wow, like
Somewhere,
floating.
yeah, it was floating, a floating island. And from where the captain was, he could see under. He could see under the island that there was not touching the water. It was above the water. And he reported that in the naval records that there was an island off the coast of Florida in the Bermuda Triangle that
Hmm.
was not in the water. It was above the water. That's the U.S. Navy. They never found out. They didn't know anything about it. I don't know what happened if he turned around and went the opposite way or went around it. I don't recall what the book said about it. But
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
just telling you, there are things going on in the Atlantic Ocean that we are not being told. There are
Hmm.
things going on in the oceans that's high technology. There's some kind of an extraterrestrial presence, some kind of a high technology out there in the ocean. And that's what it says in the Old Testament in the Bible. It talks
Hmm.
about, I think it's in the book of Psalms, book of Psalms. It talks about the creatures who live in the oceans, and
Hmm.
that God will deal with the people who live in the oceans.
But we have also this premise and this argument that, okay, as we have some kind of bad spirits, roaming around or whatever, doing bad things, and perhaps they influence the material world. You have also, I guess, good spirits, right?
That's
Can,
right.
do they have like a kind of a fight, or they just don't worry about them and they focus more on helping people, or how do you think this works?
Well, I think that they are spirits that are not from this earth,
Hmm.
but they are a technology where they have come from. They have planets with water and they came out of the water. then they came here somehow and are in our oceans.
Hmm.
Of that, I have no doubt in my mind. I believe that there are extraterrestrials here who live in the oceans of the earth, especially in the Atlantic and probably in the Pacific. We know that there are huge temples. I mean, very
Mhm.
enormously large temples under the ocean in the Pacific. Ancient temples from tens of thousands of years ago. Ancient temples in the Pacific off the coast of Okinawa in
Hmm.
Japan.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
they've taken pictures, they've taken movies and pictures of it. Divers have dove down into the ocean, and there's enormous temples like the Vatican. I mean, big, huge buildings and huge, enormous walls like we would see in China and these
Mhm.
big temples, but they're in the ocean. They're underwater in the Pacific. And there's also, we know that there are enormous temples off the coast of Cuba.
Mhm.
And you have to go underwater, you go down, and they photographing them, and they come back with pictures of these big temples in the ocean, in the Atlantic, just north of Cuba.
Mhm.
Between Cuba and the U.S. are enormous temples under the ocean.
Mhm.
So
Well, that,
I'm just saying that there's a whole lot of stuff that we're not being told
mhm.
about the world we live in.
That leads us to another. We have another lead here that you talk about islands and underwater cities, ancient cities. We don't really exactly know how actually many scientists actually ask themselves how can it be that there's so much water, so many oceans, if they came from another planet or some cosmic event. But talking about islands, one very mysterious island, and you probably have come across these in your lifetime, Jordan.
Easter Island,
Easter Island. There you go. These very
yeah,
strange people. You see a lot of things going on with these strange. They don't look like the people that used to live there. What do you think about the Easter Island puzzle? This
yeah.
this.
Well, somebody carved these enormous, big. And
Mhm,
what most people don't know, they've seen these heads on Easter Island, but they don't realize that the last 2/3 of this statue is underground.
mhm,
If you go to Easter Island, you'll see these big heads sitting there. You think they're just sitting on the surface. No, they're not sitting on the surface. You start digging around them and you keep going down 30 or 40 feet, and then you see their bodies, and hands and arms and bodies
mhm,
of those heads. So those heads are not just heads that are sitting on the ground. No, they are covered like 40 to 50 feet with sand, but they have whole bodies. These carvings.
mhm,
Whoever carved these statues, they were very tall statues, and all we're seeing is just the heads and shoulders. So there's more to these creatures, and some of the pictures you will see with those creatures, they do have bodies, as you will see. You're
mhm,
looking at them; they have bodies,
mhm, mhm,
and well, the same thing with the ones who are on the grass, and you see them on grass. Yeah, but they have the bodies also.
mhm, mhm.
And so, what is it that caused those creatures to be buried? The one you're looking at now on the right, they have long bodies,
Yeah,
30
yeah.
to 40 feet long bodies.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
that means that if they're buried, it's been a long process from nature to actually bury that. So it's not like 2,000 years; it's perhaps even more. And the inhabitants, if they build these, like they say, in like the 1,000s or 800s or something, they couldn't be any possible time to actually have that kind of burial. It can't be by hand. I mean, it should have been
No,
through nature. For many thousands of years, perhaps even.
yeah, maybe thousands of years ago, there were tsunamis
Mm,
who washed the whole island
mm,
across, and these huge statues were covered with sand and dirt, and they grow all the grass around them. And then thousands of years later, this is what we see, these big heads sticking out of
mm,
the earth, but we don't know how they got stuck down into the ground with their bodies way down in the ground. So it very well could be that there was some tsunamis who happened to cover up these creatures, these statues. And I
mhm,
don't believe humans made these statues. I don't believe that for a minute.
mhm.
Uh,
Von Daniken used to have. I think he made a show about these, and he said, well, as usual, the holy chariots of fire
yep,
theory, that they were like the gods, those divinities. They came from earth and whatever, much earlier than anybody else. I think in the 60s, he talked about these, and he went around the world, showing these, that it couldn't possibly be something human. And they also the strange language they had, in Rapa
yep,
Nui. They have some strange. It looks like sometimes like cuneiform or Sumerian or something, right, Jordan?
yep. You're right, and there's no doubt in my mind that the bottom line on all this that we're talking about, the bottom line at the end of the day, is that we today, we the humans on the earth today, have purposely not been told about what the governments know about our history on the earth.
Hmm.
They know the history of the earth is many countless thousands of years old. We know that there has been life on the earth millions and billions of years ago. Why do we know that there's been life on the earth billions of years ago with the B? It's because in South Africa and Central Africa they have they have drilled mines and gone into the earth so far down into the earth where the particular strata of earth that the miners have gone down into is so far down in the earth that all the paleontologists and scientists agree that far down as these mines have gone at that
Hmm.
distance down into the earth is so far down, many miles down. Anything that far down is in a strata of the earth which is 3.5 billion years old. Well, they're bringing up handmade artifacts, small little metal handmade artifacts down there when they hit the bottom. So they're in a mine which is in thousands and thousands of feet down in an area which we know to be, in prehistoric, and we're in 3.5 billion years old strata of the earth, and they're finding these little handmade artifacts, which means somebody, no matter how you cut it, somebody was here who knew how to work with metals, melting and melt metals, and create artifacts, rings and bracelets and jewelry and little artifacts, and it's down there in strata, which is 3.5 billion years old. That tells me that somebody was here billions of years ago, and they knew exactly what they were doing when they were designing these little handmade artifacts that we're finding. So
Mm,
that's an interesting subject.
I'm showing some from I think it's Klexkorg or Klexdorf or something
Yeah, yeah.
in what is this, in South Africa, from the mines of central South Africa. They have some grooves. You can see some lines going on. I don't know what you. can make out of these.
Did you ever see the gold uh, components, computer components that were found in Russia?
Yeah,
The,
yeah, there was something there. I was about to fire it up here on the computer too, and show it to the people. There was also some, yeah, yeah, and bracelets and a lot of stuff. I mean, even not very long ago, they discovered some new man, the Davisonian man or something. So
hmm
there must be very different creatures. Even you go out to Peru and Bolivia, and you see these big, big staircases, right? Can you tell us something about this? Do you know something about this, Jordan? These big.
Yeah, then there's pictures. I don't
Hmm.
know where it is. If it's in South Central or South America,
Hmm.
I think it might be in Peru,
Hmm.
where they have flown over and took pictures of stairwells that were that were chiseled into the side of the mountain.
Hmm.
Somebody was chiseling steps on the side of a mountain, and each step is about approximately 5 stories tall.
Hmm.
5 stories tall each step. So somebody needed steps, and they were so big that each time they take a step, it's like 5 stories high.
Hmm.
Each step was 5 stories high. So you gotta wonder who in the world was big enough to walk up steps that are 5 stories high each one. And
Yeah,
yet,
yeah.
on the other hand, you got things which are artifacts which are found in Africa in the earth down in 3.5 billion year old
Hmm.
strata. I'm just telling you, we humans have never been told the truth by our government. They
Hmm.
know something we don't know. And that's why we have places like Area 51, where the governmental powers that are not United States government, has nothing to do with the U.S. government, but the real political powers that are behind the governments of the world, they are looking at all of these strange things that are going on, and I am sure that they know the real truth. We don't. They haven't told us. But boy, I have a lot to say about all of that because I've been looking at this stuff for 60 years. I just know that we've never been told the truth. Our government does not tell us anything. So that's it.
We are on a need to know basis, Jordan. And another thing I was going to ask you, and you actually interview this person. I heard you talk about this person in Los Angeles when I went to a couple of your conspiracy conferences and stuff. There was this person identified as Nancy or Jane Doe, or whatever, and I think that was one of these men in black people traveling around the world, recovering spaceships or strange objects or something. Can you tell us a little bit more about this story? You remember this?
You're talking about my girlfriend and her father?
No, no, no. I'm talking about no, no. I'm not talking the LA alien experience. I'm talking about Nancy in the
Oh, yeah.
uh, from
Yeah,
the
Nancy.
space, and then she also has some experience with some kind of a strange creature coming from the closet and stuff. But it
Yeah,
seemed like they received calls from whatever army
they
base
were
they were in
reptile
Germany or
aliens.
whatever.
They were reptilian.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were
yeah.
reptile.
Yeah, yeah, but the dad, her dad, obviously was from like 40s or 50s. Was going around bases, recovering also some alien stuff or something or whatever
Yeah.
that did. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a very dear friend. Her name was Nancy. I loved her. She was such a sweetheart, and she was so sweet, but she was so knowledgeable about what's going on in the world that nobody knows anything about. And the
Mhm.
reason why is because her father was an Air Force official in the Air Force, and her father was in charge of Project Retrievables, is what the government called it.
Mhm.
Project Retrievable, meaning anytime. on the earth, a UFO came down, landed, or crashed, or something. If a UFO comes down, we want the U.S. Air Force wants to retrieve it. We want to
Mhm.
go out and pick it up and bring it back here and study it and look at it and see what it is and where it came from and how it works. And so her father, Nancy's father, was in the Air Force and he was in charge of Project Retrievables.
Mhm.
And so he used to, she said he would tell them that, and tell the family that they always lived on bases. They lived on bases, depending on where something was happening, he'd have to leave and go somewhere around the world where something has just happened and they have to send him and he's in charge of going to find out what happened. If some UFO crash or something, he's in charge.
Mhm.
And she said that when he would go, they would have to go and live on an Air Force base near wherever it was he had to go. And so he was always traveling around the world to events and things that have happened. And she was always having to move. They were always having to move. The military moved them from one place on the earth to the next, depending on where things were happening. And she told me a lot about what was going on with the U.S. Air Force and Project Retrievables and the extraterrestrial presence
Mhm.
on the earth, and her particular story about her confronting a reptile alien in Los
Wow.
Angeles.
In Los
The,
Angeles.
okay, in Los Angeles. And I have heard from Native Americans, American Indians. I know them, and they have told me stories about the extraterrestrial reptile aliens who live under Los Angeles.
Mhm.
They're there today. There are huge confines of big groups of aliens who are called reptile aliens, and they live under the ground in the city of Los Angeles, downtown. They live downtown under the city of Los Angeles, and there's a lot of information out there on that on the reptile aliens who live under Los Angeles. The Native Americans were the ones that told me about them. But that's a real interesting story. Just one more case of stuff we've never been told. We're not being told.
Mhm. This actually there was a newspaper cutting or something from
That's right.
the
Newspaper
30s of
article.
the 20s.
That's right.
I can read something here. The lizard people's catacomb city hunted. Engineer sinks shaft under Fort Morehill to find maze of tunnels and priceless treasures of legendary inhabitants. And this is
Yep.
from the 1920s. So this is old, you know?
Yeah.
I
This
mean,
was in the
it's not
L.A.
like
Times.
David Icke fairy tale of reptilian people coming to get you, you know? This is older than that.
This was in the L.A. Times.
Yeah, yeah,
Los
LA Times, yeah.
Angeles Times, LA Times, they have big articles about the reptile aliens who are under Los Angeles and
Yeah, yeah.
all the ancient caves and caverns and tunnels that are under downtown Los Angeles. And that there are extraterrestrials there who live in Los Angeles under the city, and they're probably still there today. So that's
Mhm.
just one more story that we haven't been told by our government that the U.S. government knows about. They know all about it. They just haven't told you. And the reason why they're not telling you because they don't think you're smart enough to figure it out. So why bother to tell you anything? You just go drink your beer and watch your ball game, and they will do the research. They'll know because they have a military industrial complex of the military is well aware of all these subjects. You're not supposed to know anything about them. So you just go drink your beer and watch TV.
What was I don't know if you remember this series Kolchak, The Night Stalker.
Oh,
and
that was wonderful.
from the
Wonderful.
70s. From the 70s.
Oh, I watched them all, but especially the one of the Dracula in Las Vegas.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, that was sensational. I watched them all. I did a television series with the star. What was his name?
Darren McGavin or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, Darren. What was his name?
Kolchak.
Darren
I
McKenna.
know him by Kolchak. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I
because he
did.
was so
I
famous by.
he was the host of a show that I was on CBS.
Yeah, yeah.
Darren.
It was Darren McGavin. Yeah,
Yeah,
Darren Darren
Darren
McGavin.
McGavin. Uh huh.
Yeah.
I was on a show with him. He was the host of the show, and I was there as an expert witness,
Mhm.
and I worked with him, Darren McGavin. He was sensational.
Yeah,
I really liked him. He's
he actually play I think the role because he looks pretty much like John Keel in the in those series, in the
oh,
TV
you're
series.
right. You're right. You look just like John Keel, and that's an incredible man with John Keel.
Hmm.
Boy,
I'm yeah,
I've
yeah,
got all of his books. I got all of John Keel. I got
I tell you something before we go on to John Keel about Kolchak. Kolchak, there's one episode, and he encounters a reptilian, huh, in an underground base. I think it's in Chicago or in Minnesota somewhere. He's investigating these builders, these workers disappearing, being found dead
yeah,
in this base being constructed by some chemical company or some mining company or something. I don't know if you remember this episode. And he goes there. He obviously he's very smart, and he gets in with a fake pass or something, and he gets to get down there or something. And he finds out through one of the scientists that they have an egg, and that egg they think is a stone or something, and they have it in one of the closets, and that's why the creature is keep coming back at them until the creature recovers the egg that at the end of the movie, at the end of this episode, he gives the egg back to the creature and it's all fine, but the creature is actually reptilian. It's like a big crocodile, and this we're
yeah,
talking about 72, 74. There's another episode also on Inanna, a Sumerian goddess that comes to some professor's university dorm and hunts everyone, and possesses some of the bodies. And Kolchak, Darren McGavin investigates this too and exorcises the spirit through some spell that is in these tablets, in this cuneiform. So he had a lot of episodes that are things that we're talking about now. So I wonder who actually created this series. I mean, do you
yeah.
know?
That's
Did
right.
he talk about this?
Yeah, you wonder who created this episode because it was so well done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Very, very interesting stuff. All the strange occult stuff that's happening in this world that we humans are not privy to know anything about.
Mhm.
Military knows, governments know, but not us. We, the people, we don't know what's going on under Los Angeles. We don't know what's going on under Arizona and New Mexico, underground, in the caves. I know when I was up at Area 51, I saw a lot of things with my own eyes that would challenge your beliefs. I saw things and experienced things up at Area 51 nobody even knows is there.
Mhm.
There were telephone poles out across the street when I was up at Area 51.
Mhm.
It's called Rachel, Nevada. It was a little Mickey Mouse little town. I
Mhm.
wasn't in Area 51. You can't go in there. But there is a little town just outside called Rachel. And I was told by the owners of the restaurant, I was in there talking to him about what's going on under the ground. And he told me, the owner of the restaurant said, go across the street and you see that telephone pole out there? I said,
Mhm.
yeah. He said, go out there and put your ear next to the telephone pole and listen. I did. I walked across the street from the restaurant and walked out into the desert. About 30 or 40 feet out in the desert, there was a telephone pole. And put your ear to it, and you could hear machines like cars or planes or whatever, or trucks going back and forth, coming back and forth. You could hear it on the telephone pole. You could hear this kind of machinery, like a cars or planes, UFOs. I don't know what they were, but you could hear them coming from one area, going to another. You could hear it. So I know there's a lot of stuff going on up at Area 51 underground that we are not being told who they are and what they're doing.
Look, it's called. I just found it. It's called the Sentry.
Yeah.
And it's the last episode. The last episode. Even he encounters a Bigfoot. He encounters an alien that's actually like a kind of a spirit, and it's lost.
I encountered a Bigfoot.
Oh, tell us about the Bigfoot.
I was up in Washington State, and I encountered a Bigfoot. I was up in the mountains, way up in the mountains on a vacation with two other guys my age. The three of us, we drove up into the mountains. What is Olympia, Washington? We went to the Olympia Brewery, the three of us, 20 and 21 years old, the three of us. There were two brothers and myself, and we decided we'd go up in the mountains of Olympia, Washington, vacation, the three boys. And we were stupid. We thought we'd go up way, way away from civilization and go up and really, get to realize and experience the wilds of the mountains of Washington State. Well, we did. We went way up in the mountains, hours and hours of driving, away from the cities, away from everybody, hours of driving. And we ended up on a dirt road that dead end at a river in Washington State, Olympia, way out past Olympia, maybe 100 miles. Mm-hmm. And that night, one night, we were confronted by Bigfoot.
Wow.
Yeah, and scared me to death. He didn't bother us, but we knew he was there. We could hear him. We could hear him walking around us, and we laid quiet, played dead, because we knew that's the strange thing. That's the thing to do if you're confronted by a large animal, a very vicious animal. Play dead, and they won't bother you if they think you're dead. So we laid quiet.
Do you think they're dangerous, Jordan? They're not peaceful.
No. There was some kind of an animal.
Like this, like Giorgio. I have Giorgio here. He's got a lot of beard. This is the beard the Democrats they're going to grow after the impeachment.
Yeah, that's it. But I did have my own brush with Bigfoot, and my two friends that were with me. Mm-hmm. My two friends, they were brothers, and they were with me, and they had the same experience. All three of us saw and had the experience of being confronted by a Bigfoot. So I know they exist. There's no doubt in my mind, because I know we saw them. We saw it, whatever it was. It was big, like a gorilla, very large. Mm-hmm. And I know all three of us saw it together, and we all three were scared to death.
Were you camping? Were you in a tent, or were you in the car, or what were you doing?
Yeah, we were camping way up in the wilds of the mountains.
Oh my God!
Yes, we drove way up into the mountains until we came to a dead end, and we slept. We were sleeping in our sleeping bags next to the car.
Holy sugar.
And the oldest of the three of us was like 21 years old, and his brother was like 19 or 20, and I was 19. And we were laying on the ground next to the car in our sleeping bag. And the oldest one, his name was Roy. He was sleeping on the driver's side on the ground.
Yeah.
He was sleeping on the ground, right on the driver's side, and his brother was Richard. Richard was sleeping right next to the door on the passenger side,
Mhm.
and I was sleeping next to Richard on the passenger side, away from the car. And so one morning we were sound asleep. I heard the
The rustling of leaves or
yeah, the
something.
rustling. Somebody was stepping on leaves and branches and breaking them as he was walking. But it was on 2 feet, not a bear. I thought at first it might have been a bear. And I thought, oh my God, I had never thought about that. Here we are, three stupid kids hiking out way out in the middle of nowhere. And if this is a bear, you better understand you're in trouble. So I lay very, very quiet, very still. And then I heard him move and walk again and walk in the bushes. And so I leaned over and I punched my friend Richard. I said, Richard, we have company. There's something here. I heard him. And so Richard listened, and then we heard him step again on the grass, on the leaves, and on the branches. So Richard, reached under the car and woke his brother up on the driver's side
Mhm.
and told him, we have company. Somebody is right here. They're only about 10 feet away, 20 feet, about 20 feet away. And so Roy opened up the car door very quietly, opened up the car door and reached in and pulled out his pistol. He had a high powered pistol on the back seat on the floor. So he just reached in and picked up the pistol, cocked it, and then reached up and turned on the lights of the car. When he
Yeah.
flipped on the lights in the car, we were expecting this thing to come at us, and he had the gun. When he flipped on the light, this thing ran or walked away very quickly. You could hear it walking through the forest. You could hear
Wow.
it walking. It was so heavy. And it walked away. And we thought, my God, whatever it was is on 2 feet bipedal at 2 feet and it's walking away. And we could hear it. And whatever it was very, very heavy. It
Mhm.
was walking, crushing the branches and leaves as it was walking away. There's no doubt in my mind what it was. Something big on 2 feet walking away. It had smelled the food. We had had food that night and at dinner. And so, never realizing that there were mountain lions and bears and God knows what other kind of predator animals are out there. And we were three stupid kids in our 20s, never realizing that we were making camp probably 100 miles away from any city, out in the middle of nowhere in the mountains of Washington State, and we
Virginia.
had and we confronted a Bigfoot. So I know they exist, no doubt in my mind about that. You would have to have been there that night with us to see and hear and experience what we did. There was no
Mhm.
doubt it was not an animal. It was not a dog or a bear because bears walk on all fours. This one made no sound whatsoever.
Mhm.
No barking.
You know what? I talked to Lloyd Pye several times, and
Uh-huh.
then, well, when I moved to Europe, I kept on talking to him by email and sending emails to each other and pictures and stuff, and he was writing to all this stuff. He was talking about, I think it was the Minnesota man. He sent me even pictures of some guy. some Bigfoot frozen in a box or something that they were like,
Yep.
rolling around circuses and fairs and flea markets and stuff a long time ago. In the what was that? In the 40s, in the 30s? Do you remember the story? Do you
Yep, I
remember Lloyd
remember
talking
it's
about
in the
this?
late 30s or early 40s, somewhere around there too. I don't remember exactly, but you're right. Either in 30s or 40s. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. And Lloyd used to say that this is like the pre-man. I mean, whatever that is original to the earth. I mean, that
Yeah,
we are not original to the earth. We're not native. This was the native creature. That was his conclusion or something. What do you think about this?
yeah. Well, I think that that is true. That there were Neanderthal creatures that have been on this earth hundreds of thousands of years old. They were like animals. They probably looked like uh, uh, gorillas or chimps or whatever, monkeys of some kind,
Hmm.
but walked on 2 feet, bipedal, and were built like us. And they had their females and their family, and they were what we would call the ancient prehistoric cavemen, the
Hmm.
ancient creatures that were here hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years ago.
Hmm.
And some of them are still here today. They're still here today. We call them Bigfoot
Hmm.
or the Yetis.
Hmm.
All over the world, all the cultures of the world talk about the Yetis. All the cultures from India, Africa, Asia, America, South America, Central America, from the Amazon regions. There are all kinds of stories by all the ancient peoples of the world talking about these Bigfoot creatures that roam at night. And so that's why I don't have any problem believing it, because I did have a brush with one.
Hmm.
It just
But
tells you that there are living creatures here on the earth that you don't know anything about, period.
mhm. Yeah,
And
is.
there's also the story of how many families have gone out and spent a long weekend or something out in the
The
what,
wild.
what, well in the natural habitats,
Hmm.
and how children have been kidnapped. It's a huge story that most people are not made aware of, but
Hmm.
it's very, very dangerous to take a family, a man, his wife, and children, and they go on a vacation to some national park, national parks, and they go out and they get a tent, and they're going out camping, thinking it's fun to
Hmm.
go out camping. And yet, when the children get up early in the morning, they go out and walking. And then when the parents get up, they're looking for their children, and the children are gone, never to be
Hmm.
heard from again, never to be seen again. They were gone, kidnapped, and sometimes they'll find the child's body 10 to 15 miles away. Later on, they'll find the child's body that was kidnapped, that were gone, and nobody knows what happened to them. The family were obviously uh, frightened to death that their child was gone. Got up in the morning, went out for a walk, and was never seen again.
Hmm.
So I think that there's probably some kind of an intelligent creatures that are on this earth you've never seen and never heard anything about, and they are smart enough to know how to stay out of your way so you will never see them. But they know where you are, and if you're in the area, they know where you are. And they are intelligent creatures walking on 2 feet, bipedal, 2 feet, and they know exactly where you are. And if you're out there in the national parks, you are sitting ducks They know exactly where you are. They watch you, and they know where your children are. And if your children get up and go out for a walk,
Wow,
you'll never see your
you gotta
children
watch them.
again.
Yeah, there's some there has been some sightings even in Europe, near the Pyrenees, in the Basque Country. They have this ancient legend about the Basajaun or Basahound, they call it. In the Canary Islands, they call it the Wolf Man too, and in
Yep.
France is the Basajeux. So they do have it in the Pyrenees and some parts of Europe, and even in Russia and the Almas in Asia and whatever. So it's not only exclusive to North America. You have them
Yeah.
roaming around in several places. You know,
You want to hear some really strange stories?
tell me,
My
tell me. I,
friend,
I love him.
yeah, well, my friend Paul Tice,
Ah,
T I
Poltergeist,
C
yeah.
E. Paul Tice is a publisher. He
Hmm.
publishes all kinds of wonderful, off the wall, strange books about the occult religion, and the ancient hominid creatures, the ancient Bigfoots, all kinds of interesting books like that he publishes in San Diego.
Hmm.
And his website is the
DTH
the book tree.
book tree.
The
Yeah.
book tree.
Hmm.
His name is Paul Tice.
Hmm.
If you go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, SHOW, have to add that on, Jordan
I ha-
Maxwell Show.
I have it here. I was gonna say it.
If you go on Jordan Maxwell Show, you will see I'm speaking. I'm supposed to be speaking at a conference in Laughlin, Nevada, which is about 50 miles south of Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Laughlin, Nevada. I'm speaking there in February. February 15th, I'm going to be in Laughlin, Nevada. And Paul Tice, who has had some of the most incredible experiences never heard before. And he's going to be there with me, and we're going to talk about some of the things we've both seen, some of the things we've both experienced, and some of the things he's experienced that I have experienced without him.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
They,
if you're
they have they
interested,
have here the old time religion. They seek to raise the past, so we republish it.
yeah,
Thebooktree.com.
that's right.
Thebooktree.com, Legacy of Zechariah Zichin, World of Deception, Mysteries Explored, and all these books about, advanced science and technology, altered states, man expansion, alternative health, and all the feature authors. It's got a whole catalog here. That's Paul Tice. And if you want to go to Jordan Maxwell show, that we have it here also. I've been projecting actually the website right just on the screen, all the time. Is there? You can see it on the screen, www.jordanmaxwellshow.com. And Jordan, for whoever watching the show tonight, afternoon in United States and morning in other places. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining in. Uh, Go to jordanmaxwellshow.com. There's the real legitimate side of Jordan's. And you see there is the UFO mega conference
It's going to
in
be a mega conference. It's going to be
in
very,
in
very big.
Lachlan, in like the Scottish would say in Lachlan.
That's right.
In
It's going to be in
Lachlan. McLaughlin.
Nevada.
Some Scottish guy or girl
If you go,
probably.
if you look on the map, you will see Las Vegas. Then scroll down about 50 miles with your eyes, about 50 miles south of Las Vegas.
Mhm.
It's a little small town on the Colorado River called Laughlin, Nevada. And then February 15th is going to be a big UFO conference at one of the hotels there. And it's all on my website. You go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show,
I'm
and
showing
read
it.
all about it. And I'm going to be there speaking. If you want to meet me, come there, come to the conference.
Yeah,
And
and
Paul Tice, who has had all kinds of experiences, he's going to be there too. We're going to talk to the audience about some of the stuff we've experienced together.
Yeah, yeah. You
And
got Paul Tights. You got lots of people there. Some people I don't know, but all interesting. You got Brian Furser, Jordan Maxwell. Uh, is Leo going there? No, Leo's not going there, is he?
no, I don't think so. No.
No, he's more into the like Masonic stuff and not so much. But UFO mega conference there in Lovely, Nevada, and that is from the 15th to the 22nd next year. And we're gonna be wrapping up. We got 7 minutes left here in the north of Portugal. I want to say hi to everyone watching. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and always, good luck to everyone too watching. Hopefully, we'll learn a lot, from Jordan. Jordan has nice stories, and he knows a lot about a lot of things. He's pretty knowledgeable, and I don't need to introduce him introduce him or anything because everyone knows him. You can go to his website directly, jordanmaxwellshow.com, and join for one-off time fee, very cheap of what is that, 30 tamales or thirty
Yeah.
dollars, you know. And you can also donate. There's a button there if you want to be a bit more generous.
On my website, Jordan Maxwell Show,
Yeah.
I have a second website called Jordan Maxwell Research website. That research website has all the pictures and documents and audio and video
Hmm.
and all the lectures and all the pictures and research materials that I have come across over the years on all of these arcane, strange, occult subjects. And so, if you want to go through all of my research work, go to Jordan Maxwell Show and then click on Jordan Maxwell Research website, and you
There
have
we're
to
showing it.
join it. You have to join
And
it.
we got stories even with T Rexes. I just got one from the flea market down here in Portugal. Beautiful, a bit yellow, like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden just right after the impeachment. They're gonna turn yellow like this or
Yep.
pale. Uh, and we have our supreme leader, uh, Donald J. Trump, the best president probably in the century, so far. And we hope and we wish he's got a long life. And
Oh, Don, you're a little controversial. You're talking about illegal immigration. I said it's illegal.
yeah, it's illegal to bring Bigfoots into America, of course, and dinosaurs. So watch
Well, all
out.
I know is that the stuff that's going on in my country would never, ever be allowed in any other country on the earth. Russia and China, the People's Republic of Communism, you sneak into that country without paperwork and watch what they will do to you when they find you.
But
You
they're allowing it into Europe. In Europe, you have a lot of mass migration too. That is the plan, actually, of the globalists to actually bring third world people and
But it
replace the
shows you that
original
the
people.
globalists have the control over the governments of Europe.
Yeah.
So the governments of Europe can't do anything about the people that are flooding into the country. They can't do anything. Why? Because the powers behind the government, the
Hmm.
international banking fraternities that finance the governments, they don't want the governments doing anything. You just sit back and watch your television, drink your beer, and they're going to flood all the people into Europe and cause chaos and destruction. That's what's coming for Europe, chaos and destruction. And the
Hmm.
international banking families, they know it, and that's what they want to do. They don't want the Europeans around any longer. They
Yeah.
want to destroy Europe.
They want to destroy the Western people, Western
That's right.
civilization,
That's it.
white man, and replace them with low IQ people so they can control them better. Because
That's
we are
right.
tired of the left, and we're tired of the progressives, the communists, and the Reds, and whatever stupid people there are out there. But we're gonna win, and they're gonna lose because we win. We know we're gonna win because our Father in heaven, called Donald J. Trump, our supreme leader, son of God or many gods, and his life being words of wisdom will illuminate us, and he will eliminate everyone after the impeachment, right? president. What would he say? What do you say? What do you say, Donald?
We are going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C.
See, in Washington, right? He's coming from Washington. He's going to start Washington, and then he's going to go all around the world, cleaning and draining stuff. But just to finish up, wrap it up here, Jordan. We talked the other day with Leo about some incredible news. I got smacked here about what's going to happen in October. Mars and Scorpio get together, and they have a party, and he helps the globalists and the Illuminati. What was going to happen in October next year, to 2020?
I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is it's going to be very, very bad. America is going to experience, and the world of mankind is going to experience something very, very serious and bad in October, I believe, in October of next year, October and November, because there's going to be an uprising around the world against freedom. And people who love freedom and liberty and justice and want to be free are going to be confronted by a world communist movement.
Whew.
And boy, when that world communist movement is called the World Revolutionary Movement. I'm giving a lecture on that. I'm giving a 2-hour lecture on that subject in Laughlin, in Laughlin, the 15th of February, a month and a half from now. And February 15th, I'm going to be in Laughlin, Nevada, giving a lecture on what's going to happen in this world. It's going to affect the whole world. And it's going to affect the president very seriously.
So you're telling us that October is a key month. October, November, Scorpio gets there. Is going to sting somebody. We hopefully
something
have
is
to
going
take
to
some-
happen. Something is going to happen.
Something terrible is going to happen.
Yeah, because it's going to be Scorpio is the constellation of the zodiac that will be in the whole world will be in Scorpio. The whole earth will be in the constellation of Scorpio. And Mars is a god of war, and Scorpio is deadly. So that tells me something that October, November of next year is going to be some kind of a deadly warring experience.
But we'll have the
Deadly.
cavalry coming, Jordan. Jordan, we have to kill it here. We have to cut off
Yep.
because we've gone over the a lot of time. Don't go away. Off the mic, I'm gonna tell you something. We say Merry Christmas to everyone. We thank you a lot. We thank Jordan. Jordan is, words of wisdom as usual. Go to the jordanmaxwellshow.com, and there you can see everything. Is it's an eye opener, so you can learn about a lot of things, paranormal, mystery things, geopolitics, whatever. It's amazing. Jordan, and he's 60 years, and about research about all these paranormal, supernatural, preternatural, like he says, of all these very strange stuff. And we have to be closing down, and we're gonna say goodbye to Jordan. We're gonna say goodbye to you guys. We're gonna say goodbye to everyone. My little friends are showing up now here on the screen. Just arrived from Alpha Centauri. I don't know where they come from. And the Cowboys are coming. Clint Eastwood is coming because they're all pussies, man. I want to kick your ass, Democrats. You left. We're going to kick your ass. You'll see. All our friends in the world, they're with us. And remember, this is the Colin Rivers Show. The Colin Rivers Show with Jordan Maxwell today and Colin Rivers. I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and obviously good night and good luck to everyone. We love you, man. And we love you, people. Thank you for watching. And I have to cut off. 3, 2, 1.